Good afternoon. Today I'm joined by our Director of State Operations, Catherine Garcia, and our Deputy Secretary for Public Safety, Marco Soler. At approximately 2:27 today, there was an incident at the Temple Israel in Albany, within the city of Albany's confines. Shots were fired outside the temple in the parking area. There were no injuries or fatalities. The suspect is a 28-year-old local resident who was walking around outside the synagogue acting very suspicious, according to witnesses. He fired off a round from a shotgun while making threatening statements. After the shots were fired, the police were called, and on the premises was an early childhood center with at least 24 children, preschoolers, who were on the premises. The parents were contacted. The facility went immediately into lockdown, and as of this time, the parents have been able to retrieve their children, and the lockdown has been lifted. All the children have been released safely. Federal law enforcement is currently leading the investigation with the support of New York State Police, who were on site at the time, immediately following the incident, as well as the Albany Police as well. New York State Hate Crimes Department agency is involved. I immediately called the rabbi. I knew this rabbi because literally on October 7th, after the horrific attack on Israel, I went to this synagogue and I spoke. So I spoke with Dr. Rabbi Anderson tonight and assured her that the state of New York will do everything possible to restore the sense of security that her congregation needs at this time. I will also be planning to attend at this time Shabbat services at this temple Friday evening. As we've talked about before, after the October 7th attacks, I've directed our state police as well as the National Guard to be on high alert. They have been conducting surveillance and created a presence at synagogues, yeshivas, museums, cultural centers, all vulnerable targets throughout the state of New York ever since October 7th. And especially during the holiday season, as we begin Hanukkah tonight, I directed earlier this week that they continue to actually increase their presence at all these locations. This builds on the significant efforts that we've already undertaken, making sure that we've mobilized state police, invested tens of millions of dollars in additional security devices and measures, developed online strategies to suppress hate at the source, also $50 million to help local law enforcement so they can do their job to protect our communities who are under siege at this time. We also made sure that the threat assessment teams are activated on every college and creating 36 county-based teams operating across New York. In addition, I had previously asked former Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals, Jonathan Lippman, to begin an investigation into anti-Semitism and hate crimes across SUNY and CUNY campuses. The bottom line is this: the safety of Jewish New Yorkers is non-negotiable. Every act, whether it's verbal or physical, any act of anti-Semitism is unacceptable, and undermining the public safety at our synagogue the first night of Hanukkah is even more deplorable. The prospect of violence in a place of worship is not just an attack on the building. It's an attack on the very fabric of our society, our freedom to express our faith, our collective shared sense of safety. And I remind everyone, as New Yorkers, this is not who we are. This must stop. We reject hate, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia. All hate crimes must stop, and all violence in every form must cease. We have no tolerance for these acts of evil that have now permeated our society. And the rise in anti-Semitism that started centuries ago is dramatically on the rise in our own state since October 7th. It has increased and fueled the anxiety of Jewish New Yorkers throughout every corner of the state. Thankfully, at this time, no one was injured in this incident. But the fear that it has wreaked, and the fear and the anxiety that it has caused, I know a lot of people are feeling really shaken right now. This wasn't the first incident at Temple Israel. In September, it was one of multiple synagogues targeted with bomb threats. And now to know there's an individual who literally brought a gun, a loaded weapon, to their premises, shakes people to their core. They shouldn't have to be so frightened. At a time, this beautiful holiday about to commence, people should be relishing in the light of the world. That's what the tradition's all about, the lighting of the candles. This state must not descend into darkness. We need this light to shine bright, and if all New Yorkers stand up for each other, to defend each other's dignity, respect each other's differences, because that is what New York is to its very core and always will be, but we must protect it. We will stand together against violence, bigotry, and hatred, reaffirming our commitment to unity and understanding and protection. So here's my commitment to Jewish New Yorkers. We will not be intimidated into silence. We will not be threatened into submission. And we will celebrate every aspect of the great Jewish traditions, starting here with Hanukkah, because these must be kept alive, as they have been through centuries of persecution before. We will tolerate no hate in the state of New York, and I will use every single resource as governor of the state of New York at my disposal to make sure that everyone in the state of New York is safe. At this point, I'm going to ask Eva Weimer, the Deputy Director of Jewish Affairs, to join me in lighting the menorah this first night of Hanukkah. Eva traveled with me to Israel in the aftermath of October 7th. I want to thank her for her courage and for her willingness to stand up as a proud Jewish woman here in the state of New York. Thank you for your service to millions of New Yorkers, Eva, and I'll let you have the honors.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu l'chadlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa nitzim l'avoteinu, bayamim hachem b'zman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'chechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu l'zman hazeh.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor.
As I mentioned, this is an ongoing federal investigation. We've been supporting and helping our partners. So there are questions I may not be able to answer, but at this point I'll attempt to say what I'm allowed to.
Governor, can you elaborate more on the threatening statements that this individual is making? What was he saying?
I will let federal law enforcement talk about that at the appropriate time. Right now, this is under investigation.
And how quickly did Albany police get to the scene? How quickly was he after the
Very quickly. I believe it was the director of the Early Childhood Center who first heard the shots, and she immediately called 911. Albany police were there very quickly, as again, this has been a site of bomb threats before. I have been there personally, and they knew that there was a need to respond very quickly. State police immediately followed, bringing in our hate crime task force to help with the investigation. And FBI arrived a short time afterward. But the individual is now in custody. A 28-year-old is now in custody. And we'll wait to see what happens when he appears in court.
And do we know anything else about this individual's history? Have they made any threatening, do they have a history, again, of violence or a rap sheet?
This individual does have a rap sheet. He's a local resident, but I'm not at liberty to disclose the contents of this at that time.
Okay, is there any more concern, any active threats again against Temple Israel at this time?
No threats at this time, but again, we have heightened security throughout the state of New York at all these sites, especially as we enter, starting tonight, for the next week, as families gather not just in their homes, but in very public ways. I'll be heading over to the largest menorah lighting in the world in a few moments, and proudly stand with Jewish Americans, Jewish New Yorkers, at a time when there's a tremendous level of stress. But we must continue these traditions. We cannot be deterred, we cannot be threatened, we cannot be intimidated into continuing these joyous occasions with our families and individuals who right now deserve a lot of love and care because of what they're going through. And that's what I'm calling on all New Yorkers to do. Try to be more understanding and compassionate.
Great. Anything from Channel 7 in the back? No? All right.
Okay.
Governor, Nassau Democrats just announced that they chose Tom Suozzi as their nominee. Of course, you gave him your blessing earlier this week. Have you talked to him today? Have you talked to the Democrats?
I have not talked to him yet today, but we'll be working very hard to make sure that he is successful in the special election and on to November as well.
And then have you talked to Mayor Adams about his visit to the White House today?
I believe he's still down there, so I'll be certainly catching up with the mayor upon his return.
Great.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.